The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we are webcasting to you live from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California, Tower 1 in fact. This is the new home for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters. It is also the new home of Autism Live. If you're just tuning in today and haven't been with us for a couple of weeks, you may notice that things look a little bit different. This is not our permanent home. We have a studio that is being finished and built on the 18th floor, and we have taken up residence in a conference room on the 19th floor, and that's where we're coming to you live. We're calling this Autism Live Light, but we will keep you updated. If you're watching on Facebook, we're trying to update you with pictures on the new studio and how it's coming along, and we'll let you know when we're ready for our big unveiling ceremony there. In the meantime, we just couldn't stay away from you that long. We have too much to cover, so we're here. I'd like to remind you at the start of the show, this entire program is meant to be interactive. We want to participate with you. We want to know what's going on with you. We want to know your thoughts and especially your questions. Kelby is going to cycle through some of the different ways that you can get in touch with us here. I'm going to remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. When you go there, so much to do. Please sign up for our email list. That entitles you to our monthly newsletter and to our weekly viewer guide so that you can know what's happening. I know things changed a little bit this week because we've got some amazing guests that are with us today that we didn't have at the beginning of the week. One guest in particular that we wanted to let you guys know about. So sign up for that email list. It's totally free. Also on our homepage, you can be watching the live show by clicking on the triangle that is on the computer screen, or you can click on the playlist tab that's up in the upper left-hand corner of that computer screen, and you can cycle back through our most recent 100 shows. Now to the side of all that is the live feature. Take your cursor, put it in the one that's the box that says your question, start typing, hit enter. That's it. You don't have to log in. There is no cost. You have complete and total anonymity unless you decide to tell us who you are and where you're writing from. Please do that if you want us to get back with you about something specifically. We will not share that with the audience at home. But we so enjoy when you guys write in and interact with us. All right, I like to remind you here at the start of the show that while we have many experts on the show, I am not one of them. I am a parent, and I'm a proud parent. Can I just say that today, how proud I am of my beautiful child? And we got a diagnosis for our son when he was 2.5. He is now about to be 12. We're in the final countdowns until I have a 12-year-old who is taller than me. Like, where did the time go? But I always like to remind you guys that with like a lot of you that are parents out there, I want so desperately to learn more so that I can help my child and that I can help somebody else along the way. That's why I'm here. So remember, I'm not an expert, but we do have experts here that we want you to interact with. And when you want my opinion, you know I have one, and that I'm happy to share it, but it's just my opinion. All right, we like to start the show with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. We try to make sense of it so that you can figure out what are those experts talking about and what does this do for me today? How can this help me to get to that progress that I want to see? We know if you're a parent, teacher, practitioner, or you yourself or an individual who's on the autism spectrum, you're looking to make progress that's meaningful to you. It's not one size fits all. And then these jargon terms, boy, they can be helpful if we know what they actually mean and how to use them. So today's jargon term is systematic desensitization. This is something that we talk about quite a bit on the show. If you were watching yesterday, we brought back an oldie but a goodie. Dr. Doreen Granpeche was at the Pentagon this week. So in her stead, we played one of the episodes that she did a little over a year ago, part 1 of the Anxiety Show. And she talked about systematic desensitization. So what exactly are we talking about? Our actual definition, it's a longie but a goodie. A type of counter-conditioning that involves learning to substitute one response, typically muscle relaxation, for an unwanted response, fear or anxiety. The client practices relaxation while imagining anxiety-producing situations in a sequence from the least fearful to the most fearful until the anxiety reaction extinguishes. Systematic desensitization is sometimes called graduated exposure therapy. All right, as our actual definitions go, this isn't the worst. It's not the best, right? If you don't know what counter conditioning is, you might go, oh, what is this going to be? But it explains itself a little bit more. But still, let's see if we can water it down just a little bit so it's a little bit more accessible for us. So our working definition, systematic desensitization, gradually exposing someone to increasingly unpleasant or fear-inducing items or circumstances while having them practice relaxation techniques in order to reduce fears or phobias. You've heard Dr. Granpeche talk about this a lot. If you or someone in your life is experiencing a great deal of anxiety around a specific thing, what has been found to be effective, and we've been using this a little bit on me in the new building because I'm not so good with elevators. Let's just be real about it here. So prior to us coming to the building, I worked on a little systematic desensitization by helping myself to relax while first looking at pictures of elevators and then eventually imagining getting on the elevator, then coming to the building. And, you know, I was at a place where I was good to go right to the 18th floor right away, but not everyone would be, right? So that you can gradually work up to the point where it is less troublesome for you. I've shared before on the show that I'm certainly somebody who has OCD and a bit of panic disorder. I don't know if you can have a bit of panic disorder. I think you just have panic disorder. And that there was a period of time in my life after my son had had 2 years of intensive ABA and the stress of getting that all working, that I had a period of time in which I could not leave my home. We had had a little incident in the car where I thought both my husband and I were going to die, and it, boy, made everything stopped. I went home and was like, that's it, we're never leaving home again. I couldn't drive. And rather than be stuck in that position forever, I got help and we did systematic desensitization. So I now am a road warrior and I drive every day at least 2 hours in the car. So know that when I say to you that systematic desensitization works, it works for us as adults. And this is something that we can use very gradually, as it says in the name of it, with our kids on the autism spectrum. So, and it's a much kinder way of doing things. I know it sounds difficult, like, oh man, we're gonna, expose them to the thing that makes them uncomfortable, but in the tiniest, smallest amount, while being mindful of getting them to relax so that they can gradually handle more and more of it. We can do this with sounds, we can do this with places, we can do this with fears and anxieties, including heights, those of you who've written in about heights. Systematic desensitization, it works, but you gotta go slow. That's the key to it. All right, that's our jargon for the day. We always have a question for you. Our question for you this morning is, what fears would you like to overcome? We've had a terribly good laugh here about the fact that I had sworn that I was never going to take an elevator over 8 floors again in my life, moved from New York City, said I really don't need this in my life, and where did we move to? The 18th and 19th floor. Well, sometimes you just have to work on things and the universe says you got to progress on them. So I was unwilling in the beginning, but I'm working on it. But I want to know from you guys, what are you wanting to work on? What fear would you like to overcome? What is preventing you from getting to the good stuff in your life? And if you could work on it, would be so freeing. So absolutely freeing, because that's really where the good stuff starts. All right, we always have a topic for the week, and I'm sure you can guess what our topic this week is. You're not seeing it on the screen right now, but our topic this week is anxiety. And so High Anxiety, right? The great movie, if you've ever seen it. We have Gremlins today. I don't know, Gremlins wanted you to see other things, but is Kelby feeling some anxiety right right now. Kelby's having an anxious moment. It's okay. But anxiety is our topic this week. And by the way, this is something that is pervasive in our society. It's certainly not just the autism community, but as I have experienced myself and just told you about, and when we go to events and we talk to parents and we talk to kids, we talk to adults, we see that anxiety is a very real part of what we're facing. It goes hand in hand with some of the challenges that we're looking at, and it doesn't have to be the thing that sinks the battleship. So we're going to be talking about that a little bit this morning, but I'll be honest with you, our day has changed a little bit today because we had some opportunities to have some really remarkable people here on the show. So we're going to start it off in just a few minutes today with a wonderful gentleman, Tom Bowes, who himself is on the autism spectrum, and he is known as the self-proclaimed autistic genius. He has a series of videos that are on YouTube that we're going to be talking about that might be of interest to you. I find them really fascinating. So he's going to be joining us in just a few minutes. A little bit later on in the hour, we're going to be joined by Christopher Stadlius, and I hope I'm saying that correct, but if not, he'll correct me. We're not sure whether we're going to have Tom Wardick joining us as well, but both of these gentlemen co-wrote and co-produced a new short film called Burning Down. And Christopher plays the lead in this short film that centers around a dad who has a child who's on the autism spectrum. So we're going to talk with Christopher about that and the inspiration that I'm assuming is from his real life. A little bit later on in our second hour today, we are very proud to be debuting the first episode of The Future is Bright with Stephanie Schaefer. Stephanie was with us last Thursday. You may recall that she won The Apprentice. She wasn't just on The Apprentice, she won The Apprentice. And now she has made it her new passion in life to be helping the autism community. She has paired with the Autism Society of America. They have launched a new show here on Autism Live called The Future is Bright. And Stephanie's first episode will air today. And her first guest, who better than the fabulous Scott Badish, who is the president of the Autism Society of America. I was here when we filmed this. I'm telling you, it's an hour you don't want to miss. Inspirational, educational, truly wonderful. We're really proud to be bringing this hour. So that's in the second hour, right at the top at 11 o'clock. Stay tuned with us for that. I have one quick story that I want to address before we go to break, because we won't have time later on, I know. In the news this morning, just want to give a shout out and give some support to a mom in Quebec whose son, 17 years old, Trevor, is scheduled to graduate from his program at the Felix Leclerc School. He is on the autism spectrum and has been on an autism track in parallel to the students that he's been with for 4 years, and graduation is upon them. And Trevor and 3 other students in that program have been disinvited to their high school graduation because they didn't do the same academic program as the other children. They were told that they could be graduated at a separate ceremony that happens earlier in the year, but they are not invited to come to graduation. We want to say to Trevor, to his family, and to the 2 other students, we get it. We understand that you've been fighting forever to be a part of and not segregated. I say shame on this school. To this school board, you need to rethink this and teach inclusion to those students who are graduating, who are about to go out into the world and experience many things. Start them off on the right foot by including everyone. They've all worked hard. We'll talk to you a little bit later on about justice and equality, but graduate these students. We stand in support with them. We're going to take a break, and then we are going to be back with Tom Bowes, the autistic genius.
When you find out you're having a boy, you always think like, oh, he's going to play football, he's going to do this and that. And then when he's diagnosed, all those things get washed away.
It's like that piece that's always in the back of your mind, you know, where is he, what is he doing, is he safe?
We really didn't know what we were dealing with. I wish that they could have directed me a little bit more and provided me some information.
I was a young mom. I didn't know what it was like to raise a boy, despite a boy with autism.
Hundreds of thousands of families are not getting the help they need for their children with autism all around the country. Act today. is determined to bridge the gap. These families really have to go through a lot to get a grant. The application process isn't easy. The records, the diagnosis proof, they're really battling for their kids. So when we can give them a grant, it is so wonderful to see that they succeed in getting that help for their children. Our founder, Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet, is an amazing woman, and she is one of the world's foremost authority on behavior of children with autism. She's extremely knowledgeable, and she oversees every single grant we give. She is part of that process. People may think of autism care and treatment as simply schooling or therapy, but we provide important safety supports, things like fencing, for example. The whole family's living in fear of that child running out into traffic. I recently delivered an iPad to a little boy with some of the apps that are out there for children with autism. Miracles happen.
I got the iPad from ACT.
From ACT,
What did it say? Can you repeat that, Dustin?
I got the iPad from ACT.
We have helped so many military families, and when I think of these brave families that are fighting two battles, one to protect our country and one for the right treatment and care for their children, it breaks my heart, and I think we have to do more as a nation to help them.
There's not a day that doesn't go by that we don't think about it. Some people say, oh, he's normal. You don't see the battles that I see every single day. My husband does have to deploy, and when they get on that bus, that might be the last time that my kids ever see them.
So I called and they informed me that he had received the grant, which was like a blessing from above. I was just like speechless. I just started to cry because, without it, we would have been lost.
The ACT grant was a total miracle, and without that, they wouldn't be able to receive the service dog. So we're so appreciative what they've done for us as a family.
Recently, ACT Today funded a program for military children with autism in San Diego, the Inclusion Films program, which is run by Joey Travolta, and teaches kids on the autism spectrum literal filmmaking skills. They learn how to make a movie.
Are we ready? There you go, got it. Okay. Everything that goes into the process of making a film goes into everyday life. So they're learning life skills, they're learning to collaborate.
It was really nice to know how much they were enjoying this camp, and they're with people who are supporting them and are making them feel great about themselves and their differences and their similarities. And I get two kids that are working together and apart and together and apart, so it's an interrelationship as well as a camp and a learning experience.
It's so fulfilling when I get letters. One stands out for me, a boy who was 14 with Asperger's, and we gave him a grant to go to a drama camp. He wrote to us and said, "Dear ACT Today, thank you for letting me belong for the first time in my life." These kids are remarkable. We underestimate them. They're so knowledgeable, they're so capable, and we can change the life of a family, which means changing the life of a community.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm so excited because joining us via Skype right now is Tom Bowes. He is the self-proclaimed autistic genius. Tom, thank you so much for being with us.
That's all right, anytime.
I'm thrilled to have you here, and we want to talk a little bit about how did you come up with autistic genius?
I suppose it's I don't know, it's just one of them. I suppose it's the stereotype, isn't it? So you look at, I think it's a stereotype. It's something that it kind of like, if you hear the name, it kind of makes sense to all people.
Yes.
Like when they say autistic genius, they automatically think crazy really good piano player, or like someone who can work out like count in like milliseconds. So it's kind of something that a lot of people relate to, I think. And also, to me, it sounded like a really cool name.
It is a very cool name, and I think that
I just kind of went,
It's very apt too, because if people go to your YouTube channel, they will see a series of videos that you do. They're very short videos, but
Yeah, they are.
you explain autism in such a brilliant way, frankly, Tom. I find them
Wow.
very refreshing. They're fun, they're exciting. I haven't yet shown them to my son, but I'm going to, because you know what it reminds, my son is very much into video games and things like PewDiePie and things like that.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You're right in that same category. You're speaking his language, but you're talking about autism and explaining it. I think it's brilliant.
Oh, wow, I didn't think of it that way. Well, I've done a lot of talks before, before any, like, years ago when I was like a student. Because I used to do some, like, talks to staff and people who worked with autism, because they wanted to hear from the horse's mouth, so to speak, from people on the spectrum, because they were sick of hearing with self-proclaimed experts who just read about it. And like, and it's refreshing for me on it, because I learn more talking about it than I do listening about it. And I found it amazing, because like, I get so much more back from the audience, and I was like, they were laughing, they were asking questions, and it was really good for me. So then when I look at doing it on the internet, I think the only way to get it good is to be almost like them. So I immediately looked at it like, I'm not a person talking about autism, I'm a YouTuber. So I look at it like I'm a YouTuber, but the subject's autism.
And that's
Does that make
exactly
sense?
how it plays. It makes
And
total
that's exactly
sense.
the idea I'm trying to go for, because I don't want to look like, I don't want to be like, oh yeah, because all the people that talk about it, who know about it, and are incredible, they're just normal, bog standard live talks, or they talk to camera. But I thought, no, I've got to be a proper YouTube vlogger and just be straight to the point without waffling.
It's wonderful. So let's talk a little bit about you, Tom, because you mentioned they wanted to hear it from the horse's mouth. So you identify as somebody who's on the spectrum with an Asperger's diagnosis?
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
And how old were you when you got that diagnosis?
I was 16.
Wow. So a little bit later. And before that, were there other people in your life that knew that you had Asperger's, or was this the first time that your family was learning it too?
My mum always had a gut feeling that there was something. She used to say something not the same. Like she had a gut feeling all her life that something wasn't quite right, and she's pushed it and pushed it. And I had all sorts of therapy, all sorts of stuff. Nothing was found out, and she put in place a lot of techniques to help me, which actually are really good autism techniques anyway. So my mum was kind of, in a sense, she knew what she was doing, but she didn't know what it was. Does that make sense?
It does.
She constantly had that, because I always say on my page, and whenever parents ask and they go, I'm not sure, I said, always go with your gut, because that's what my mum did.
Yeah.
It took her 16 years, but it was my final year of high school when I got the diagnosis.
So now you're 26 years old, and forgive me, but it seems like you are an expert in autism from the inside out. I've watched some of the videos. You're brilliant at explaining some of these things. That I'm a mom, and you know, I keep studying, and I'm nowhere near being an expert. How did you find out all of these things?
Well, I find that people with one of my things, my biggest flaw, I suppose, my biggest autistic trait is the flexibility or the imagination area. So it's like I tend to, I'm kind of all over the shop and not very organised. But also in that area, I struggle to, like, sometimes piece things together.
Mm-hmm.
So looking at that, the concept that I see a lot of things separate, I tend to look at things in life in general, and they kind of go through individually. So like, everything will go through literally one step at a time. And as things go in that way, I'm able to see how these things are affecting me with autism. And I just talk about it on videos, and apparently loads of people agree with it and think they have it in common because they're on the spectrum themselves.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how my brain's going. And it's like, something will happen in real life, and I'll go, what? And I'm like, oh wow, that's I should tell people about that. I wonder if and then I kind of do a video about it. Like today's video was about voting. We've just done the general election today. We voted in the UK. And I had it in my brain that I had to tick this person in this box. And then I opened the box and that person wasn't there. And I literally almost had a mini meltdown. So I was like,
So-
and that was a video today.
Yes.
And but yeah, I just try and take things from my life because I don't know whether I don't know how it is in America, but in the UK we find we're very distant in regards to this adults with autism.
Yeah.
It's all very child focused.
Yes, I
And I
think
think
that's pretty much everywhere. We need to change that, though, and I think that you're a good
I'm
person.
talking about me. It's an adult with autism, and I live on my own independently, and I have autism. So I kind of just focus on me and my perspective instead of trying to take something else from somewhere else.
It's
So,
very refreshing, Tom, I have to say. Tell our audience how they can access these videos.
You can go on YouTube. You can search Autistic Genius on YouTube. My most popular way of accessing a video is my Facebook page, which is Autistic Genius on Facebook. I am also on Twitter at Autistic Genius, and I've also just recently launched 2 days ago a new page with another autism vlogger and a campaigner called Autism Central. It's literally just launched. I've got some of my videos on there as well.
Okay, great. And
So-
explain to us, who's Mr. Fred?
Mr. Fred is a fidget toy. So if you've got like little toys that you hold, like like tangles,
Yes.
like your fidget hold, and Mr. Fred is sold as one of those, and he's just a little yellow man that I bought, that I've had for years because I collect fidget toys, and I just called him Mr. Fred, and I thought, wouldn't it be fun? And then a lot of parents were saying that children were liking my videos, so then I thought, well, I've got to do something that the kids like. So then I thought Mr. Fred. So it's like almost a relatable character for the children.
I love it that Mr. Fred is featured in some of the videos. So give them a taste of, you mentioned that you talked about voting and that you talked about having a mini meltdown today. I watched a video the other day where you explained echolalia. I've watched videos where you talk about what the sensory experience for autism is.
Oh, right.
You're pretty much covering the full gamut. Tell them some of your favorite videos.
My most popular video, and it's not my tip that I've made up, but it's a tip that I got years ago. It's called the 8-second rule.
Love it. I saw that one.
And essentially, the 8-second in the UK in teacher training, they always say if you ask a child a question, you must wait 5 seconds for them to respond.
Yes.
But if they're on the spectrum or autistic, however you word it, you must give them 8 seconds to respond. And I put this video up, hearing this rule in training, thinking this is a good rule, I think it would work. And then loads of parents responded saying, I've tried it, it works, this is brilliant.
It is brilliant, Tom.
So that's probably one of my things.
I really want to encourage people to check that out because it's really amazing. And definitely check out Tom's Facebook page as well. So I'm curious, Tom, because people are going to write in and ask, is this your only job or do you work another job besides this?
I don't actually make any money being an autistic genius or being Autistic Genius.
Not yet, but I sense it's coming, Tom.
Maybe, we
Yes.
hope. I work part-time as I'm a qualified nursery nurse, which is preschool and younger age. I'm qualified to work with. But I currently work for a company and I help run a before and after school club for parents who work, and I drop children at school and I collect them and I take care of them at the same time. Take care of them there.
With
and
all
also
of
on
your
a Saturday,
knowledge, with all of your knowledge, I'm surprised they're not having you do therapy with individuals with autism.
They've asked me to do some training after the page took off so well. I've designed a course for the company.
All right, that's pretty amazing. So you started. I interrupted you. What else were you saying that you also do?
Oh, sorry. On a Saturday, I spend the whole day teaching children like drama. We do some like some singing, and we do a musical theatre workshop. So I teach that all day on a Saturday in a local school on a Saturday.
Wonderful, Tom. You got to write a book.
That would be nice.
Yeah, I think that's what's coming next. Hey, you know, I think that you're amazing. I think that your video is amazing. I want to encourage everybody to check out your Facebook page and your videos. And anytime you have something you want to share, we'd be happy to have you on the show. You can be a correspondent for us.
Anytime.
Okay.
You name it.
Tom, thank you. You're doing really good work.
Thank you, and you guys are. I love it.
Well, we're big fans. We're big fans. Say hi to Mr. Fred for us and have a wonderful day. No more mini meltdowns.
Never.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
And you, thanks for having me.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye. Wonderful, wonderful young man. You got to check out these videos. I can't wait to show them to my son because I know he will love them. It is very much that YouTuber sort of format, very accessible for our kids, especially our older kids on the spectrum. We're going to take a break, and then in just a few minutes, we're going to be back with our wonderful guest, Christopher Stadlius, who is going to be joining us talking about his new film, Burning Down. And don't forget, in the next hour, The Future is Bright with Stephanie Schaefer and her very special guest, Scott Badish, the president of the Autism Society of America. Stick with us.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Hey, welcome back to Autism Live. We heard you. Everybody wants
macaroni and cheese.
Yeah, but we're gonna make it allergy free. But here's what's the crazy part of this macaroni and cheese. It's actually healthy.
And it tastes good.
Yeah, it tastes really good.
That's the most important part.
So we're gonna start, we got our water boiling. There's so many variations on the pasta. We're using today a corn pasta. We can verify with the manufacturer that we have a GMO-free product. So let's go ahead and put that in there.
Ooh,
and if you don't mind, stir that up for me, my friend.
Now it's sticking a little bit to the bottom. Is that okay?
We maybe add a little more high heat oil and spread that around again. One thing you gotta know about gluten-free pasta, if you overcook this, it becomes mush. Let's move this guy over to the other burner so you can see what I'm doing. And now we're gonna start with the old macaroni and cheese sauce. What's great is there's a lot of choices for, you know, different soups. And the way that I look at soups, and again, please follow the recipe on your screen right now. I don't like to measure very often. But what I like to use is a creamy butternut squash soup. So this soup is great because it adds a lot of flavor to the dish, but also gives people another serving of vegetables. With kids, we don't want to over season. Maybe with the adults, we can season some for the kids first, pull it out, serve them, and then add a little more, you know, garlic powder or onion powder or other types of things into your dish. So the next most important thing on this recipe is we're going to add in a thickener and the faux cheese. Now some people like their sauce really thick, so you just add in more cornstarch or more arrowroot, so that's not a big deal. How's that doing? You think it's ready?
I think it's done.
Okay, so why don't we switch? I'll take that, you do that.
Okay.
And I'm going to strain this bad boy here. Here, let me turn that off.
Okay.
Or we're going to cause trouble again.
Trouble in Lisa's kitchen.
Yeah, no.
That's another show.
Don't, yeah, right? So I'm going to go ahead, get this all strained. It's a good consistency. So I'm going to check to make sure our pasta is cooked. So really you just want to make sure, just like any pasta, it's a little bit squeezy, a little bit. Nice. Dude, good job.
Hey.
We're good.
Looks yummy.
So even though the cheese is not totally melted, it's okay, don't panic. What's important is that you're gonna love this recipe once you eat it. What I enjoy most about this recipe is that it smells good, but this stuff is amazing. So if you don't mind, I'm going to serve you some up, and you can maybe blow a little bit on it so you don't burn your mouth. Sorry, I'm once a mom, always a mom.
Just like we tell our kids.
I know, right?
It's hot. I can't wait. I'm excited.
So I'm going to give a shot of this too, but
oh my gosh, that is so good.
This is the ultimate comfort food. So
it's so
isn't
good.
it good?
And I'm not just saying that. It is really good. It literally tastes like something our kids would really like, and that sweetness is really, really, really good.
So the bonus for us is that when we're serving this to our kids, they're actually getting a full serving of vegetables in this. So instead of just eating a bunch of carbs, worthless calories. You're actually getting some good stuff in this. And we'll be back next time. I hope you join us again here on Autism Live. We're really loving the feedback, and if you have additional feedback, here's how you get it to us. You can send it to us via email at autismlive@gmail.com. On Facebook, facebook.com/autismlive. And also there's thousands of recipes waiting for you to discover them with pictures and different things on the TACA website. So you can hit TACA on the web, tacanow.org, and we'll be back. Hopefully we'll get to do this again.
I had so much fun.
Maybe we'll have a little wine, but you got to join us next time. We'll look forward to seeing you then.
Bye guys, we're gonna keep eating.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're very excited. Our next guest is joining us via Skype from New York City. We have filmmaker, actor, and wearing many other hats, Chris Stadoulis. And Chris, first of all, welcome to Autism Live.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So let's talk about some of these different hats that you wear. I understand that you used to be a New York State trooper, but now then you became a fireman, and you are an actor and a filmmaker and a dad. Are there more things besides that you do?
Activist sometimes.
An activist. That's a very important one not to leave out.
When I have time, yes. Yeah, I became a New York State trooper first before 9/11, and I actually resigned from the New York State Police in the summer before September 11th happened. And reason why I resigned was because I was getting called for the medical and the physical for the New York City Fire Department, and I knew it was getting close to getting on the job. And I went back to my old job, MTA, Bridge and Tunnel Officer, and I was down there on 9/11, helped clean up for several days, and then I became a fireman at the end of October.
Well, bless you. You're a true American hero. And amongst all this, I understand that not only are you a parent, but you're an autism parent.
That's correct. Yes, one of my sons, my older son, is in the spectrum, and that's pretty much what inspired me to make the film Burning Down.
And let's talk about this. There's a short film. I was saying yesterday feature length, but then I got to screen the film. It's about 31 minutes, correct, Chris?
Correct. Yes.
And tell us what the film is about.
In short, it's about a New York City fireman, a good husband, a good father, has 2 children, and he learns that one of them, the boy, is autistic. He is in denial. He refuses to accept it, basically because he himself had a very tough childhood because he was born with a birth defective disability, if you will, and his own father did not accept him because he was, different. Yeah. So he has to do some soul searching, and he ends up homeless. His wife won't allow him to drink and continue doing drugs, and pretty much not being supportive, not being a dad and being there for his son. And while he's homeless, he ends up having I don't know if you call it a vision or a epiphany, but he basically realizes the root reason why he cannot accept his son being autistic, why he has a problem handling that, is due to the same thing like what I just said, is his dad couldn't accept him. So he searches for his father, and he gets some things off his chest, but he also has closure because he didn't understand his father's disease, being an alcoholic. And a lot of people don't. You're usually an enabler instead of showing tough love. So he confronts his dad, and he finally gets things off his chest, and then he has that, the monkey off his back, and now he's able to move forward and be there for his son in the end of the story.
Yeah, and I think, there are so many amazing things in the film, but certainly we talk about it a lot on this show. We don't get to hear enough from the dads. There is this preconceived notion that when people talk about autism, they talk about the autism moms, and it's a place where a lot of women have found their inner superhero and have become warriors, and it seems like that gets a lot of the publicity, And for whatever reason, we don't hear enough from the dads, and we don't hear enough from the dad experience and how difficult it can be to come to terms with the diagnosis. And I think that your film goes a long way to showing what the inner turmoil could look like for at least one dad. And I think that there are probably many dads that can relate to the story that's in the film.
Sure.
I know that the film has not been seen widely yet, and you've got a screening coming up. Tell us about that. But I'm wondering, of the dads that have seen it, what kind of feedback you've gotten from them.
Well, the screening is May 13th. It's a private screening in Tribeca Screening Room, New York City. It's only cast and crew, and we invited Autism Speaks members that are with Autism Speaks, as well as Smile Train, because those two organizations have given us their support. I told them about the project a few years ago when it was in development, and they love it. They love the idea. And the next step that we're going to do is hold a private screening / fundraiser. And I have a list of celebrities, whether it's actors, musicians, news reporters, journalists. I have a whole slew that I've researched, basically people that are involved, that support, that have donated, or have a relative that is in the spectrum, or have a birth defect disability such as a cleft lip, cleft palate. So that my goal is to raise the funds for 50% of the funds will go to one organization, the other 50% will go to the other one, as well as get these people that are prominent in the industry to see the film, see the quality of work we did on a very, very low budget, the passion we put into it, the great storytelling, the great writing, and it's just relevant to today because autism is such a big topic. And just to touch upon what you said about dads not being really in the limelight, the forefront, so to speak, obviously I think one of the reasons is you have so many deadbeat dads, and unfortunately I think dads are, not that there aren't mothers out there that aren't deadbeat moms, but I just think there are more dads out there that are more likely to stray from the home, from their children, and the mothers more likely to stay with their child, also get the rights to, have their child with them 24/7, and then, give the dad some rights to see them. Basically, I think that's one of the reasons. And another reason is I do know a lot of autistic moms that are single because of the situation, like I said, examples I just gave of husbands who weren't supportive, who maybe had addiction problems, who were womanizers or what have you, for a variety of reasons. And I think they are the strongest advocates for their children, I believe. And obviously they're the ones that carry the child for 9 months and go through the labor. So I can understand
we're closer
that as well.
to home, so to speak, when it happens.
But
we want to take a short break, but we want to come back and talk with you a little bit about, again, the inspiration for the film and how close to home this actually hits. So for those of you watching at home, stick with us. We're going to be right back with more talking about Burning Down with Christopher Stadoulis. Have I got it right? Stadoulis?
Yes, you said it right.
All right, after these messages, stick with us.
What is autism? What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to, just,
Jeez. Let me think. Oh man, that's a rough one. Yes.
Autism,
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them. Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
Always unique, totally intelligent, and
sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable.
That's right.
Awesome. Love. The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these 3 words. There is hope.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're so fortunate that we have with us via Skype from New York live Christopher Stadoulis, and he is so many different things. He is a New York City fireman, he is an actor, a filmmaker, an activist, an autism dad, and he, along with his, is it safe to say, partner, Tom Wardick?
Yes.
That you guys have created a new film that's called Burning Down. It's a short film that's about to have its first screening next week. It's a private screening. But we were saying during the break that you have a Facebook page. If people want to go and like the film there, they can stay in touch with and know if a screening is coming towards them. Why don't you tell them, Christopher, what the name of the Facebook page is?
It's Burning Down Film.
Okay.
And I'm actually double checking that right now.
That's a good thing to get right.
Let me make sure. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I apologize.
No, it's okay. You're just in the beginning phases with this film, but we're glad that we got a chance to connect with you. We were saying in the last segment that it's a short film about a dad who is a firefighter and has a child on the autism spectrum, and this cuts very close to home for you. I'm wondering how close to home, this is a question you're going to get a lot, is this story very true to your life or just part of it?
Parts of it is very, very true. I've never become an alcoholic. I'm not a recovering alcoholic. I've never taken drugs, but everything related to the fact that I have an autistic son. I just retired from the New York City Fire Department, and the fact that I don't have a good history with my father because he is an alcoholic to this day. So that part of the film, which is the turning point for this character on his journey, is really completely true. Everything that was said to me as a child, I was picked on by kids, not accepted by my dad because I was looked at as different. I wasn't that all-star, athlete kid, and pretty much everybody made fun of me that I came across. And finally, once I got into martial arts years ago when I was 13 years old, that's when I was surrounded by positive people who accepted me for who I am, not what I am. And they accepted the exterior regardless of how I looked. And that's a big problem, as we know today, with bullying, with whether you're gay or overweight or you look different or you have a disfigurement. Kids are cruel. And years ago, the difference is we didn't have technology where we could just go home from school and we could hide from that, and then we just have to face it the next day. But nowadays, it's with you all the time. People go onto your Twitter page, your Instagram, your Facebook, and they say cruel things. You read about it. It's everywhere. So it's very hard to get away from.
Now, in the film, one of the big turning points that it turns around is your character has a cleft lip. And I know that this is a cause of yours, but I will be honest with you, it is unclear to me, and forgive me if it's an inappropriate question, is it makeup or do you also personally have a cleft lip?
No, nothing's impersonal for me. I'm an open book. I was born with a cleft lip, cleft palate. I had a surgery when I was 6 months old. And then when I got older, I had several more surgeries to, touch it up. But for the film, we do enhance it with something called, I think it's called Collodion Ridge.
Okay.
And the makeup girl told me about it, and it's amazing how it's like a liquid that goes on the lip. Once it dries, it gives the impression of the lip being separated, just to enhance it. So we did enhance it because we wanted to make sure the audience picked up that this guy obviously has a disability, a disfigurement, and this is a big thing that's affected him as a child and stayed with him even through adulthood.
And again, not to be inappropriate, but it was something that affected you greatly as a child?
Oh, tremendously. I mean, I can think back specific times right now, and it's clear as day, like rewinding a videotape. Yeah, I remember exactly how the kids taunted me, how they made fun of me. I was almost killed twice by some kids in my neighborhood. I grew up in a pretty rough neighborhood. But once I put the martial art uniform on, and my dad says, make sure you come home wearing that uniform, let everybody see it. Oh, they forget it. They want to be my buddy. They wanted to play baseball and football with me, and they respected me because you had to prove yourself in the neighborhood that I grew up in.
Well, I'm glad that you found something that made it better, and I'm appalled that anybody, whenever I hear about bullying, I'm appalled. But I'm curious whether, like in the film, if this has helped you with dealing with your son getting a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder.
When my son, I told my wife, because when I was a fireman, I was home all the time, a lot more than her. Because of my schedule, I noticed a big change in him, that he was not playing with his toys like a typical 1.5-year-old. Yeah. He was just lining them up. He would look at, the rug and see like little pieces of flint, pick it up, and he would have to throw it out, or he'd get something like food on the corner of his mouth, and he would freak out. So he was his senses to touch and taste and smell and sound were very heightened. And I told my wife that something seems different. He seems regressing. And and I'm not saying this vaccinations have anything to do with it. I don't know. I'm on the fence because until you can tell us what is causing it, I don't rule anything out. But it is coincidental maybe that right after the Hep B shot, which we had declined when he was born, right after that, he started to change. Okay. Now, maybe within the genes, the hormones, the chromosomes in our body, giving the shot itself maybe doesn't give you autism, but maybe it triggers what you already have, sort of like a cold, that you have germ and the cold weather will trigger that cold to come out. I don't know. And most people don't. But no, I was very accepting of it. I was fine with it. My concern was not a problem accepting my son being different and being there for him. My concern is when I leave this world, and if I go on to the next, or I end up in the grave 6 feet under, wherever I go, that my son is taken care of, that he can take care of himself, he's independent. And I just was concerned. So my wife and I decided to have a second child, just to make sure that he's not alone. So he has a 4.5-year-old brother that loves him to death, that adores him. And I think that's helped him also progress with his speech and, responding and love and affection. And thank God he gives love and affection, makes eye contact. He is verbal. He's not nonverbal. So he's somewhat mild on the spectrum compared to some of my friends that I know.
And how old is your older son?
9.5.
9.5. And are you getting good help and support and resources?
Constantly. Right away, the city evaluated. Some people came from the city to evaluate him. They gave him speech, occupational therapy, and physical therapy 3 times a week. We put him into a pre-K school that had these programs. So we're very much on top of it. On top of this, we've pretty much reinforced everything that they've taught him.
Yes.
He's very visual. We used to have a little visual, diagram of we get up, we have breakfast, we get dressed, we brush our teeth. So because he's very visual, we use pictures to show him in the beginning, but now we don't need that. Okay. He's really come a long way. I mean, he wasn't speaking at the age of 4 or 5. So now he's giving speeches. He's on the No Hate Committee for the anti-bullying committee in school.
That.
I mean, he's very, very loving, very affectionate. And he hates when people fight, argue, or raise their voice. He just wants love, and he wants a better world.
Sounds like a wonderful young man. I have to ask you, because I ask people this all the time, are you getting good quality ABA yet?
Good quality what?
ABA.
Yes, we are.
Okay,
yes,
good.
We are.
Good.
We're very, thankfully, we're on top of it. We do opt him out of taking the state test every year.
Yes.
For Common Core.
Yes.
Because personally, I'm against Common Core for many reasons, but being a good test taker doesn't mean that you're smart or doesn't really bring the most out of somebody. I think you should let kids be freely creative, free thinkers, and not tell them what to think, but teach them how to think.
Lovely. I love it. Well, we wish you and your family nothing but the best. I think that this film is a lovely film. We want to follow it and see what happens with it. I know you're going to be putting it out there to some festivals, and we want to hear what happens. And, I think that you're a beginning filmmaker and an actor. We look forward to seeing what happens with you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And the Facebook page, you could just type in Burning Down on Facebook. You'll see us, as well as Twitter. So if you want to follow us there, we've submitted to festivals already worldwide, and we're shooting for the big ones and the small ones.
All right, wonderful. Well, we'll keep our eyes peeled for it. And when there's an opportunity for our audience at large to watch the film, will you please make sure that we know, whether it's on Netflix or something like that, or there's an opportunity to see it at a festival, let us know so we can let our audience know.
I definitely will. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much.
All right.
We're going to take, Kelby, we're taking a break and going to, and when we come back, is it The Future is Bright, or we're coming back before that? Okay, I guess we'll be back briefly. So stick with us after these messages.
Skills is an online program that provides assessment, curriculum, positive behavior support planning for challenging behavior, and progress tracking, and it does this all in one place. The skills assessment and curriculum addresses 8 areas of development, which even includes advanced higher level areas such as executive functions and cognition, which pretty much makes skills the only ABA-based set of curricula for teaching more complex skills, things like problem solving, planning, self-management, perspective taking, and even inferring and predicting others' private events. Skills is a 4-step system. Step 1 is to add the child to your account. Step 2 is to start assessment. The skills assessment is the only ABA-based assessment with psychometric research demonstrating the language subscale to have excellent reliability. Every area of human functioning and typical child development from infancy to adolescence was researched, making the skills assessment the most comprehensive of its kind in the world, and we're quite proud of that.
Skills is easy to use. Simply click Start Assessment and begin answering questions. Or simply type in a keyword, find specific activities to assess, and add activities to treatment. Step 3. Choose activities. Once you've completed the assessment, Skills selects from a pool of 4,000 activities categorized by age, level, and skill type to provide you with exactly those activities each child needs. Start by choosing a curriculum, then a lesson, and finally an activity. Click the information icon to view prerequisites, ages in which targets develop, examples, and IEP goals. Click the video icon to watch a short video. Once you've identified an activity you want to teach, adding activities to treatment is a snap. Step 4. Start treatment. Here you can access customizable activity lesson details, add your own customized targets and exemplars, and edit an activity status such as introducing or mastering it. You can even print handouts such as worksheets, tracking forms, visual aids, and other materials. Skills also offers multiple progress charts mapping curriculum progress, lesson progress, and cumulative number of activities and targets mastered over time. The Skills language curriculum is categorized by verbal behavior type so that users can identify progress for verbal operants, such as echoics, mans, tax, and interverbals.
Skills is one of the only programs that provides the ability to write behavior intervention plans, or BIPs, for challenging behavior.
With just a few clicks, the outline of the behavior intervention plan is written for you and ready to be printed and implemented.
You can learn more about Skills today and get started by visiting us at www.skillsforautism.com, or you can call us at 877-975-4559. Skills. Progress starts here.
Welcome back to Autism Live. If you watch the show at all, you know, usually on a Thursday, right about now, we would be breaking to go to the A Word, wonderful ongoing documentary about a young boy receiving good quality ABA therapy at home. It's a wonderful series. We're preempting that today because we have something very special to bring you. And I couldn't be prouder. I'm so excited to be able to share this with you for the first time. It's a new program here on Autism Live called The Future is Bright. It's coming to us with a wonderful host, Stephanie Schaefer, who was with us last Thursday to sort of kick things off so you can get to meet her. a wonderful, incredible young woman who was, in fact, the winner of Apprentice, the Donald Trump Apprentice one. Yes, she won the whole thing. Amazing woman, a lawyer, and truly a brilliant mind, who has now decided to devote a lot of her attention to autism and being able to help our community. She has partnered with the Autism Society of America, another organization that we truly love. And in this first episode, you will see that she is interviewing Scott Badish, who is the president of the Autism Society of America. This entire show is called The Future is Bright. I think you're going to really enjoy this wonderful hour spent with Stephanie Schaefer and her guest, Scott Badish. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I give you The Future is Bright.
Hi everybody, welcome to our very first episode of The Future is Bright here on Autism Live. We are joined by a very special guest today who I'll be introducing in a moment, Scott Badish, the President and CEO of the Autism Society of America. I'll refer to that as ASA for all of you going forward. The goal of this show is to provide people with information on services and issues and policy and research for individuals and families impacted by autism today. We're hoping that this show will air live 1 hour each month. This first episode is taped and you can download it on autism-live.com, or you can go to the YouTube channel and you can just put in The Future is Bright and go right to the playlist for the Autism channel on YouTube. Also, you can find the show on Roku, you can listen to podcasts on Stitcher, you can download the app on iTunes and from the App Store, and you can listen there as well, or you can view any episodes that you missed. So we named the show The Future is Bright for a few different reasons, and I think Scott has some exciting news about why. In picking the name, it was mostly because of the way the Autism Society has evolved over the last 50 years. It's really made leaps and bounds in terms of the positivity with which we view autism, both for individuals and families living with it. It used to be such a dreary kind of subject for those with an autistic diagnosis years and years ago, back when it was, say, 1 in 10,000 people diagnosed with autism. And now, with 1 in 68 people being diagnosed, it's not so dreary. The possibilities are endless. There's employment, there are secondary education opportunities, there are all kinds of different fields that people can go into, and with early and good support, the possibilities really are endless, and the future is bright. So that's why we named the show as we did, and Scott will tell you more about that when we introduce him. So Scott, I'm happy to introduce you to our first show. Thank you for making it all the way out from Bethesda, Maryland. We're happy you made it in one piece.
Thank the airlines for that. So.
Yeah. We'd love to hear a little bit about your background
Sure.
and how you came to join the Autism Society of America.
Well, first of all, thank you for hosting this show. We're honored that you've done this, and also thank you to Autism Live for their commitment to autism. It's a great partnership we have, and we're delighted because we know the more information we can provide people, the more knowledge, the better things are for everyone. The future will be bright.
Exactly.
I came to the Autism Society of America 5 years ago after a 34-year career in United Ways, where I ran a few United Ways, the last being the United Way of Palm Beach County in Florida for 14 years. And the reason I came to the Autism Society of America was I have a son who's 27, Evan, who has autism, does very well, and he is actually attending college and will be graduating next year with a degree in history.
Fantastic.
yeah, we're just so proud of him. But the more important thing is he's so proud of himself, and he's just accomplished so much. And what I realized with Evan, Evan was diagnosed when he was 10 years old. And like a lot of parents who have children with autism in the 20s and the maybe 30s, diagnosis was never coming as early as it is today. Today you could diagnose a child at 18 months. And when I talk to parents about my son, and they have sons or daughters similar age, they talk about how every other diagnosis in the world Evan had. Until one day, my father-in-law, who was a social psychologist at the University of North Carolina, called me up and said, go to this internet page. And this thing called Asperger's syndrome, which is a component of autism. And that was the day when you had to make sure only one person was on the phone, and it took 20 seconds to get to whatever the thing is. And I remember looking on this website, and it said, if your son or daughter has these, maybe you have autism. And it really allowed us to get an understanding that that was his diagnosis. Our journey began, and it's been a journey which has had its ups and downs, like any journey. I talk about having 2 teenage daughters, and that's an up and down journey too. Right. But what I realized was that in the support to people with autism, it's a very difficult thing to get services. It's a very difficult thing to understand. And I felt that if I could get involved and help make it easier for parents, help advocate stronger for things that are needed, that should be provided to families and individuals, things would maybe be better. And I think each of us wants that kind of impact from what they do in their life. So I joined the Autism Society 5 years ago, became the CEO 4 years ago, and I just think it's the most amazing organization. We're celebrating our 50th anniversary this year.
Congratulations
on
that.
Which is a golden milestone, I guess. But what's unique about the Autism Society, and which we know will be unique about this show, is where people looking at cause and medical research and biological research it could be very important. We're centered on helping someone from the moment there's a perception of autism throughout their life. And how do we help that person and the family make sure that that person with autism is able to maximize their quality of life. And for each person, quality of life is different. And with the spectrum being so large, certain people will define quality of life differently. But and we do it through a national network of 104 affiliates, serving probably collectively 1 million people a year. But it's a grassroots program. It's the largest grassroots, and we're the oldest kid on the block. So we're excited about this show because we know the more information we can give to parents and individuals with autism and professionals, the better people will be off.
Can you tell us a little bit about the Autism Society of America and how the actual organization started, what its goals were, maybe back when it did start, and how that has evolved to today, what it is today to people, and with all of those affiliates?
Sure. I mean, in 1965, a group of parents got together. Bernie Rimland, Dr. Bernie Rimland, and Ruth Sullivan were our 2 kind of leaders. Bernie unfortunately passed away a few years ago. Ruth is an active 90-year-old and
pretty sharp, as we hear.
She's sharper than I am.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to be that sharp, but she's just a wonderful lady. When their children were diagnosed with this thing called autism, as she says, when it was 1 out of 10,000 or whatever, the doctors would tell them, put your kid in an institutional setting, and this is how their life's going to be. And they said no. But at that time, there was no support. There was nothing. And outside of really the institutionalization of a child with autism. And they said, we got to change that. And thus was formed the Autism Society. And it was centered on the value of options, that when a person is diagnosed, they should have options. They should, because every person is unique, they should have the ability to decide what's best for that person. It was formed on the idea that every person with autism should be provided the highest level of dignity, respect, and value of who they are, and that because they have a diagnosis called autism, should not lessen anyone's respect or value of them. And they began this process of saying, how do we help people in their communities where they live? So it was very community-centered. But as Ruth tells me often, at that time, public schools were legally allowed to discriminate. You know, you could say,
right.
you don't have you have a child with autism, they're not
We're gonna
allowed to school.
segregate them.
You know, we didn't have anywhere near the laws we have now protecting them. Ruth makes the example of it's like, yeah, you know, you're in a wheelchair, you can't walk. All the classes are on the second floor. We have no way to get your child on the second floor, but of course they could come to school.
Sure.
So a lot of the legislation that has occurred national, and a lot of state legislation since 1965, we were very involved in passing. Anywhere from how public schools should respond to disabilities. But the other fundamental issue is why we are in this autism space and want to help people with autism. We know that most people with autism, or a lot of people with autism, have a second disorder, and we never ever want to have autism benefit at the expense of some other disability not benefiting. So we are very collaborative with other disability organizations, and we know what often helps a person with autism will help someone with any other disability and vice versa. Today, as I said, we're up to 104 affiliates, heavily volunteer driven, but it's people who are giving back in their community. It's parents. We are also, another founding philosophy was that we can't be an organization that says it speaks for people with autism, but doesn't have people with autism involved in our process. So very heavily inclusive of parents, family members, professionals, but very importantly, people with autism, so that we can make sure what we're doing is responsive and that they're at the table and not excluded from the table discussion.
Now you say that, do you have people with autism on your board of directors?
Yes, we have people with autism on our board, on our staff, on our local affiliates, almost, you know, every affiliate.
Truly everywhere.
Yeah, and it's and it's, you know, you can't run an organization about autism and not have the people who you want to help and value. You can't say you value people with autism and not have them in your process. It makes no sense, and that's what one of the finest things of our organization.
So you talked about the more than now 104 affiliates. Could you maybe talk to the audience a little bit about where those affiliates are? Are they statewide? If so, how does the Autism Society interact with people? You're the national level, you're at the president, CEO level. Where do people reach out? I'm a parent, how do I get in touch with?
The best way to be helped if you have an individual, if you're an individual and you need help, if you have a family member, if you have a friend or your professional advice, is to contact your local affiliate.
Okay.
Because they know that community, and every community in America is different. But we have local affiliates, we have state affiliates, and our national. And you know, unfortunately, there's some areas of the country we still don't cover. So what we encourage everyone to do is, if they're looking for where that entry point is, that they call us up first. We have a 7-day-a-week, 12-hour a day, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Time call center. So someone could say, I live in so-and-so town, who do I call? And then we try to get them involved as quickly as possible with that local affiliate. And what they'll find is, first of all, that there's a support network. Just someone to say, hey, I've been there, I could help you. They know the resources in a community. They know, you know, the schools. They understand, you know, like we all do. There's certain times you think to someone as a title, and that's the person you talk to, but it's someone else who really knows how to run to help you. So we help that. We get about 20,000 people a month call into us and contact us for help. And so the goal is to get them to the local affiliate, to get them to start understanding autism, to get them to understand how do you plan. So one of the things we're real big on is, you know, we all plan for the moment. We all plan for, like, what do we want to do this weekend, but we're not planning for what we want to do 10 years from now. So we try to help parents at the beginning, and then as their child gets older, have them be very active. How do we plan for success in your life? How do we plan that if you really want to go to college, how are we going to get you there?
I feel like that's such a big subject that we could probably dedicate an entire show
Oh, you
to
could, yes.
planning and maybe idea and, you know, from age 14 and on. But just to go back for a second, you mentioned a hotline that people can call into, and the fact that you have availability, I think you said 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 days a week.
Right.
So for anyone that's interested, that call-in number is 1-800-3-AUTISM, and you will always get a live human being who can help you out and then direct you to the necessary resources.
Right, and if you call when we're not answering the call those times, you could email us at that time, and we'll get back to you the next day. So we want people to have the ability to talk to a human being. As much as most of us sometimes don't want to when we look for information, we encourage people, even though our website has 30,000 resources, we don't want people to feel they're going to work on this journey alone. We want them to know they have a friend in the Autism Society. And so we know that first call for help, we want that to be the first call for a long-time relationship and friend that you know you have. Information is highly confidential, it's protected by HIPAA rules, and but it's more to how do we help you. And we get calls from people just saying, I don't need information, I'm just,
need to vent.
I'm frustrated, I'm having problems with this school or that, and we listen. Our individuals are staff that are paid, they're trained, they understand it, they understand how to deal with crisis, our feedback from callers are very, very positive.
If I'm a frustrated parent, let's say, by way of example, and I call into this 800-3-AUTISM number, and I just feel like I need to speak with someone, who might I be speaking to? Would I be speaking to possibly a parent of an autistic child? Would I be, if I needed direction, could I be requesting professional help that I would then be referred to? Do I get to pick who it is that I'm speaking to? A mentor? I mean, who?
When you call us, our trained staff is parents, it's individuals, it's people who have degrees that understand this. That's a good question. I don't know. I don't think I should know this.
I don't mean to stump you.
No,
but
no, it's a good question. I don't know if you say, hey, I don't want to talk to Joe, I want to talk to Tom or
right. Maybe I have my favorite person.
No, but our staff also have expertise in certain areas.
Sure.
But they all have an expertise in helping get the need out there. Well, what's the need you're really calling me about? What's the issue? If you're saying, I'm frustrated about the schools, how do we help you? But we also try to talk to you about reality. We get calls sometimes and people will say, you know, my son or daughter is in the school system and we want A, B, and C, and they're only going to give A and B. And we then say, well, you know, how are you trying to get them to do C? Are you demanding it? Are you threatening the suit? Don't do that. Talk, but maybe if they don't do it, here's an alternative. The other question you had, which is a good question, is we get a lot of parents calling to say, well, tell me exactly what to do. What's the best? We don't want to do that. We want people to have options. So we don't know your son or daughter. And if you're an individual with autism calling, we really don't know you that well. So what works for my son may not work for someone else's son or daughter. And so we want to give options. And we want people to, at the beginning, parents know their children best. They make the best decisions for them. And we don't want to say, here's the easy answer, because it may not be the right answer for them.
Sure.
So we get called a lot, and someone will say, you know, I have a son with autism, where should I move? And we say, wait, that's not the answer. You know, let's talk about what's available in your community. Here's some people to talk to. So we try to give as many options to people to decide. Even if they say, well, someone may call and say, tell me the best dentist in town. And I said, I know what may be the best dentist for me, but I don't know if it's the best dentist for you. Here's 3 or 4 dentists to call in town. We know that they understand autism, but you know, which one works for you, which one takes your insurance, which one, you know, may have longer waiting times, you know, which one is whatever. And,
but it sounds like the Autism Society has very pointed resources, both on its site and through phone availability, that if someone were to call in, they could get at least local affiliate information that would then direct them to very specific people that they could get in touch with.
And again, we want to get someone to their local affiliate, and if they don't, if the person who calls us doesn't live in that community, we don't have an autism site in that community, we then at the national level take care of it, or we'll call the State Autism Society, or we may even say, look, we don't have an autism site in that community. It could be a small community, it could be a large community. here's a group we partner with that we would recommend you call. And you keep in touch with us, here's a number. This hopefully won't be the first time you call and only time. We want it to be an ongoing call.
And do you find that you get repeat, not
Yeah.
business, so to speak, I know it's free help, but do you find that people and families tend to reach out to you repeatedly? Do you get to know these people?
Yeah,
and-
our staff does it. They, I don't get to see the names of people calling, but I get the reports, and we get a lot of return calls, because what we want parents to do is to realize, just with any child, that it's a lifelong effort. So when you get your son or daughter ready for school, then you got to get them ready for the next phase or the next phase. So we tend to say to parents, okay, we work with you up to this phase. Now, how do we help you with the next phase? How do we help with the final phase? And there's different issues occur. So we're watching, they know, okay, how their child is responding to whatever it is to get ready for school. And we then also know that every school system is different, so we may say, okay, your school may not have these types of services, or you're in a community that may not have this service, or you may be in a community that has a lot of services, or you may be in a community that has services but you got to pay, or you're in a state, so we tend to know where they live, what may or may not be available. We tend to know if there's waiting lists for services. But our biggest issue is, this is not something you get trained in high school and college to be prepared for.
Right.
So we want to educate parents, and we want parents to know that, we're this resource, we're the library for them. So we're not telling you what book to take out, but there's a lot of books that you can take out.
But it sounds like you're providing options. And again, with the Autism Society being the largest national grassroots organization going back 50 years, it sounds like there's a wealth of information available to people. For those of you who may have missed it, you can call 1-800-3-AUTISM, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 7 days a week. Eastern time, and get a live human being. You can also email the Autism Society. Is that right, Scott?
Right.
info@autism-society.org. That's info@autism-society.org, and someone will respond to your
respond. I mean,
inquiry.
a lot of people may not want to call the first time, or they don't want to talk to someone. If they call during normal business hours, you may get a respond real quick, but it's not gonna be more than a day.
But no one would ignore an email.
Oh no,
at least.
I guarantee you. We try to get with our affiliates and everything to get back to people as soon as possible.
Fantastic.
Some of our affiliates don't have paid staff, so they have volunteers, so it may take a day or so, but we'll get back to you.
Well, and that's understandable. The affiliates are mostly made up of parents and professionals and community leaders, so we're all working, but people get to it when they can get to it and get that information out there. And the Autism Society website is www.autismsociety.org. So you can go to their website and find all of the resources, the upcoming events, current issues. We're going to take a quick break and come back and talk to Scott about some of the current issues facing families with autism and find out some really interesting new things on the horizon.
What is autism? What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to just
Let me think. Oh man, that's a big one. Yes.
Autism.
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
a lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them. Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
It's always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable.
That's right.
Awesome. Love. The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these three words. There is hope.
Hi everyone, we're back with our very first episode of The Future is Bright, and I'm here with President and CEO Scott Badish of the Autism Society of America. So Scott, thanks for joining us. We are really anxious to talk about some great things on the horizon, in particular, some of the current issues that might be facing some of the individuals and families impacted by autism today. Can you maybe shed some light on that?
Well, this is a kind of good and bad story. The good part, it's always better to start with the good, that a child who was diagnosed today with autism will have so many options and so many opportunities that will be available versus a child even diagnosed 5 years ago. And so the good news is we're seeing more and more opportunities, more responsiveness to autism in the workplace and in schools and in religious and faith-based communities and everything. And that's good. I mean, because we're starting to see society adapt to be very inclusive of people with autism. It's not anywhere near where we want it to be, but it's much better than it was 5 or 10 years ago, let alone 50 years ago. The other side of the coin is that we still have not, as a society, defined throughout society the importance of fully integrating a person with autism into mainstream society. And when I speak, I often talk to groups about adults with autism. There's about a 70% unemployment rate among adults with autism, where a majority not only want to work and can work, but they'll be the best workers someone could hire. And as a society, we still don't see that as a problem. And that's not only unique to autism, it's unique to most disabilities. We're a society, when our unemployment rate goes 9 or 10%, we get worried, and there's all these political commentaries. But 70 is a high percentage. So
it's incredibly high.
So one of our big issues is, how do we change this national discussion to saying that a person with a disability, a person with autism, has every right, and we as a society have a responsibility to integrate them fully. We have school systems throughout our country that do miraculous jobs of helping people with disabilities get ready for adulthood, be it post-college, be it education, be it training, be it vocational jobs, whatever. And then we have some that are about as horrendous as those that are good.
And hasn't that been an issue over the last several years, though, that great disparity among the different schools across the U.S.?
Well, and there's a great, one of the things about autism is it's a great disparity of where you live.
Right.
Certain states have long waiting lists for service, 7, 8 years. Other states, you immediately, once you declare your residency and live whatever 90 days or a year, you could get services. There are certain states that have a wealth of good services. There are certain states that have no services. I mean, they have services, but they're not that readily available. We have I believe we're having a greater divide among the have and the have-nots of autism. So, like most things, if you have money and you have lots of money, you could access the best services. You have the ability to move your family. If you don't have money and you're poor, you're a single parent with a child with autism, struggling, you may not have the access to services. So one of the issues is, how do you bring some equity into the system? And it's something we're very involved in. The other issue is this whole adulthood of autism.
The proverbial cliff?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's the cliff. I mean, we have a system in our country that, good or bad, says that when you have to leave high school either when you graduate or turn 21, whatever comes first. But then there's nothing out there. There's not a system of support.
Or transition?
Yeah, some transition works, some don't. Sometimes parents will realize, my God, my kid graduates in a year, what am I going to do? But the school hasn't helped them. The school hasn't assisted. We're a public school system that helps get parents and kids ready for college, but when a kid doesn't want to go to college or may not be able to go to college, we got to help that child as much. It's because they have autism or not, we have to help them. But the lack of housing for adults with autism, the lack of employment, the lack of we see even in faith-based communities, some religious programs or temples or churches or mosques do a wonderful job of integrating people with autism. Some don't. Restaurants that still tend to not purposely discriminate, but make people with autism feel uncomfortable. A society where there's just not those opportunities, and included in that, the other issue is you have a lot of parents who are aged. They're in their 70s, 80s. They may be dying, and they have an adult child who may be in their 40s or 50s. And what happens after they die?
You know, you're talking about. I'm thinking about how we just recently had the National or World Autism Day,
Right.
and I know that you were recently in New York, and that you heard the Secretary General's, the UN Secretary General's new initiative on bringing meaningful employment to those who live with autism, and there's a whole new initiative to do that. So my question is, if in order for people living with autism to realize those work opportunities, how do we roll that back and start, it sounds like, so much younger while they're still being educated, if there's that disparity within the educational system and that inequity in how people live, whether parents have the funds or not, private school, public school. How do parents, if I'm a parent and I want to make sure that my child then realizes that employment opportunity eventually, what do I do?
It's a great question. And I think you almost answered the question in asking the question. You roll it back. And one is, it's important to make sure that a parent never gives up on their child. I don't care what, it sounds too easy, but because a person has an autism diagnosis does not mean they can't do certain things, okay? And if you look at how work will change, the child who's diagnosed today, in 20 years, the work environment will be so different. So we need to really think, how do we get every individual to a work life? The schools have to understand that. Our society, when I was growing up, if you had autism, your job was going to be maybe cleaning tables. I talk about how I had a friend of mine who is autistic, whose job was to put, wrap the napkin around forks and knives. But this guy had a college education, So what the UN's done and what we're seeing more and more of is how do you work with employers to see the value? And there's a lot of employers doing that. AMC Theaters, we have Petco, the Pet Group, SAP, where they see that the person with autism, it's not only a good social good, but it's a good business decision. A person with autism who works, you ask any employer, they'll say they're the best workers they have. They stay, they do phenomenal work. The whole concept of adapting work to how we are moving in a whole environment away from the 1,000-person offices to smaller offices in some cases, that's important. The technology field, and people with autism will have a brilliance of understanding that in ways that I can't even think.
Well, in fact, there's a whole group of people with autism now working in highly technical graphics and movie editing and changing colors of vehicles and just minute detail that's so tedious, and they're so fabulous at it.
And that's, so part of it is our responsibility to say, here's a skill set that we have.
Well, to ferret out what certain people are really great at. You said that some people with autism are thought to not be very capable. I would argue that it's exactly the opposite, that people with autism have very specific, very highly technical capabilities that make them really great at certain computer-related jobs, cyber.
And part of what we have to do is, because I'm determined every person with autism could be this wonderful employee somewhere, and that we could fit jobs into people's needs. And we do a lot of this, is how do you change the culture of employers? So I'll give you an example. Like just as we as a society adapted to a person in a wheelchair, offices had to make accommodations. They maybe had to put elevators in buildings. They maybe had to put ramps in. Well, guess what? Every time I walk into a building now, I use that ramp. So the accommodations that have to be made are such that everyone benefits from it. So an example, maybe we have a large company we work with where the individual with autism, there was too much noise going around. And because of the sensory notions of autism, they weren't able to, it was bothering them. And they talked to their employer, and the employer called us up and said, what do we do? And we went in there. And we said, man, this is too noisy for anyone.
Right.
Well, they lowered the noise, and they saw that the productivity of everyone went up. And so the stimuli in the office, the ability of the interview process, you know, the traditional interview is intimidating for everyone. How do you best interview someone? Is it in a very you know, table setting where I'm here and someone's over here, or do you say, let's go down and have a cup of coffee? How do you work it where a person with autism enters a company and may not understand the social norm or the cultural norm of that company? Well, we now have a society where we have mentors at employers, you know, so how do we work those out? So,
I would argue that people without autism sometimes
right.
have the same problem when entering a new employment situation.
And you talk to an employer who actively recruits and wants to hire people with autism, they will tell you that these are issues our HR department deal with on a regular basis. And so how do you make the opportunity more successful? How do you deal with changes in the workforce where a change may be difficult for a person with autism? Maybe it's not, but how do you help that? Back to our call center, we want to make it so if an employer says, I want to understand this, we want to go and help them, because we know this is a partnership we have with the company, because we know they're going to open their doors to hire more people in jobs that are right and pay a good wage to people versus not. And so we want to work and make sure those accommodations are made. We have a great partnership with AMC Theaters, and if you look at AMC Theaters, one of the things they did is they realized that a lot of times on movies, you go to movies and they have these 20 minutes ahead of time with all these loud previews, and the lights are dark and it's intimidating. So they said, what if we lower the noise down, and what if we don't have so many previews? Because it's, you know, you get there, you get antsy. And once every couple Saturdays, we'll have a show just be autism friendly. Well, guess what? Not only are they filled with people with autism, but they're filled with people who don't have autism, who don't want that noise. So it's a smart business decision, and it's a win-win for everyone. And that's what we try to talk to our employers with, to say this is a win-win.
You say you try to talk to your employers about this sort of win-win employment situation and educating employers so that employers can help to foster a more positive environment for the increased workforce of people with autism now coming into it and graduating and coming out of secondary education. It gives rise to a question for me.
Okay.
Is, let's say I'm an employer. I have, you know, a large company, let's say I've got 1,000 employees or whatever I may be, maybe I'm a small employer. And I call you and I ask for some advice about how I can create a better work environment for employees with autism, or secondarily to that, educating my own workforce and my supervisors, managerial staff, etc., to be able to really foster a positive attitude and a positive environment for those individuals. Do you go out as the Autism Society of America and provide training for employers when they ask for it?
If it's not us, we're going to hook you up with someone we know that does good training. We may actually ask another employer to say, hey, you go and talk to them because you guys are in the same kind of network. But yes, we want to have that relationship that they say we're helping them. You hit a real good point. You know, if you have 1,000 employees, statistically, you probably have people working for you who have autism you don't even know about.
You may not know.
Which that's great. But you also have family members there. So we also want to educate family members of what's out there, but we also want employers to know that sometimes family members, you know, it's happened to me, it happens to everyone. The kid's school bus doesn't show up, or something happened that you have to take a couple hours off for the day off. We want you know, employers are very family friendly now. We want them to understand that, but we want them also to say, hey, you know, if you're an employee of mine, here's this number you call the Autism Society.
You know, it's very appropriate that we name this show The Future is Bright. You're very astute to do so. And one of the reasons I think so is because as these individuals with autism are entering the workforce, and as employment becomes a central focus for us with not only legislation, but for people across the U.S. to help and get these people employed, and everyone's entitled to gainful employment and earning really good, strong wages. I think a big part of it is really the education within the work environment for making people feel comfortable and making people more aware of just how to make it an individualized environment for a person that has, let's say, particular sensitivities, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I have been involved with autism since my son was diagnosed. So I have 14 years. I work at this wonderful organization, so I know this stuff. You can't expect an employer who's maybe never been exposed to it to know it. Nor same thing with a school teacher. You know, your school teacher, knows how to teach math, may know how to teach kids of certain. So you have to be able to have a give and take of learning. And you know, when I've yet to meet an employer who says, no, I won't hire people with autism.
Well, and that's a fabulous thing, because I think if you just make people aware of it and help, again, to educate and get the word out, much in the way, well, by way of example, Google fosters very individualized, creative, environmental type of learning and a work environment that very much caters to that specific individual, and people love to work there. It becomes that way for other employers as well. If you allow that individual to be able to work in an environment with, let's say, noise canceling earphones or dimmer light, or an office that's just catering to their particular
or even to say,
sensitivity.
You know, it's maybe you want to start the person at 10 instead of 9 because the anxiety of going through traffic or on the buses or whatever is too much. Well, guess what? That would help me. I don't like going through that anxiety.
If I'm an employer, I care about productivity and the happiness of my employees, because happy employees make for great work environments.
And if you look, you know, I joke with my staff, you know, all us old guys are there first thing in the morning, you know, an hour before this thing's supposed to start. The work environment's changing. It's people want to work out of their homes. People want to sit in front of a computer all day. Well, so employers understand that. So they want people to do that. So I believe, you know, that if people can understand that what autism really is versus what they perceive it as. One of the problems we have as a society is that, you know, as much as we want to promote autism as this, you know, valued, respected, dignified person, some don't. And so we want to make sure that, you know, there are people on the autism spectrum who may need 24-hour care every day. But that doesn't mean that person can't work. And you know, there's something for that person to do. And you know,
with the drive and the passion, that person can do anything, is what you're saying. So we just need to be open to that.
And part of our jobs as professionals is to find opportunities.
Ferret it out.
Because if the person can't communicate, that does not mean they can't work. You know, there's communication. You could, you know, I mean, I have 4 kids. I communicate through text and emails. I don't have to talk
Probably
to them.
more than you want.
I don't have to talk to them. You know, I talk to them when they need money, maybe. That's what I'm only time they ever call. Although, yeah, they don't even do that anymore. But, you know, how do you communicate in the society? So there's so much more coming online, and with employers and opportunities. The issue with employment is that we have got to do a better job as a society of integrating employment with housing, with transportation, with social abilities, with proper health care, this whole quality of life. So whereas it starts with a good job, if I have a good job and there's no good housing for me, or there's not housing that's affordable for me, or where my employer is, there's not a good transportation system and I don't drive. We got to start integrating that more. And
the bigger picture.
And we want every person not to be, you know, certain people want to live in small communities. That's great, if that's what they want. But we don't want people we want people to have options. So if they want to live in downtown LA or downtown New York, that works. But so how do you make it so people could work and live near the same, their employer, or be on a bus route, or if they want to drive, you know, have a good route system there. And so it's a little more complicated than just employment. But you know, as we all know, when you have a job, your value in life, your
productive,
whole,
less
you
depressed,
feel much
happier.
better. So.
Sure. Okay, you touch on some really interesting points about the ancillary issues of housing and transportation and some, I think, probably some bigger challenges facing us in the future. So let's take a quick break, and we'll come back and we'll talk about that right after these messages.
Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, and we're at the ABCs and XYZs of Special Needs Conference. And this year, for the first time, they've got something really remarkable. It's the Entrepreneurial Boutique. These are all items that have been made and are being sold by individuals who have special needs. So we're going to do a little shopping and talk to some of these fabulous entrepreneurs. Come on.
My name is Molly Rarick, and I'm founder of Breed's Gift. We're a nonprofit that serves teens and adults with special needs, like Chase here. We were founded in 2013 and serve people in the Conejo Valley, Santa Barbara, and LA.
Our main objective is to give our participants the skills they need to gain a more independent life.
My name is Shelley Cox, and Lisa Zalagi and I are founders of Creative Steps and Create Micro Business Enterprises. And the items that we're selling here today are all made by the clients who have passions about what they want to make, and then they get the profits from what they make after we've paid all of the other expenses.
We are here today because my goal is to be independent, and also I would like to share all my artwork, and I would like to sell.
Thinking about at his young age being a businessman, you know, it's amazing. I cannot be more proud.
Hi everyone, we're back with The Future is Bright, and Scott Badish of the Autism Society of America is going to talk about new legislation that's coming about and some of the challenges that are facing individuals with autism and families impacted by autism. So Scott, take it away.
Well, you know, legislation's at the local, state, national level, and each one has its own challenges. I am much more involved, my office is much more involved in national, but our autism societies are involved at local and state, and we of course help them and support them. The national level, you're seeing some interesting things, and a lot of it's good. This is our 25th anniversary of the ADA, which George Bush, the first George Bush, signed, and it gives us some time to reflect on where we've been. And the ADA was, you know, it was a massive, in a way, a lot of believe was a major civil rights bill that allowed us to define that we have to have the value and the rights of people with disabilities. But, you know, it's given us some time to reflect legislatively what have we done and not done. One of the things that's happening in Congress now is that Congress is looking at a lot of social services not as a fundable service, but as a tax incentive. So this past year, we were very active in getting the ABLE Act passed, which is in its simplest form is like an IRA for people with disabilities. So I could put money aside for my son, my daughter, someone's son or daughter. It's taxed when it comes out, but it also doesn't count as an asset toward people who are an SSI. So it excludes, if you have $100,000 in that account, it excludes, you're over the $2,000 limit, but you're not going to lose your SSI. There's some bills in Congress right now that will give other tax incentives. Those are good bills. There's two issues we're concerned with as a nation, as a society, autism society, and others are. One is most parents, a lot of parents, don't have money to put aside. You know, we struggle day to day. The second thing we're keeping a real close eye on is we can't have Congress say, we gave you this tax incentive that had you paid taxes on that dollar, we would have had $1 billion more, so we don't have to give you services, because then you're dividing the have and have-nots even further. Because you know, the person who's able to put money aside may have more wealth, and they may be poor, but from what we hear from families that struggle every day. You know, they're going into their second or third mortgages. They don't have that ability. So we're keeping an eye on that. So how do you help at all ends? The second thing is legislatively is this whole adult services. Chris Smith, who's a representative from New Jersey on the Republican side, and Representative Doyle on the Democratic side from Pennsylvania, are two wonderful national leaders who are really moving autism forward. And we're in contact with both of their offices, working quickly on how do you really make sense out of an adult services. The system we're using for services at the national level, it's broken. It's tremendously broken. Everyone agrees it's broken, but now we got to fix it. SSI, which is the primary way lower income families or individuals with autism could help get subsidy, has very good impact on helping people, but it also has some real disincentives. We're looking at that. That's something. There's a big move in Congress now called community integration, which as a policy makes tremendous sense, to me at least. It says we can't fund segregated efforts where individuals can't put housing and transportation together. So how do we as a society fully integrate people with autism and disabilities into a community? That's a controversial issue because sometimes people may want to live like in a farm community and whatever. But at least we're moving in the direction of saying we need to be integrated, and you know, my neighbor should be someone with autism as easy as it could be someone with a wheelchair or someone who's just graduated college. That's something that's you're going to see more of as we move forward. The other issue is this constant debate: do you put limited federal dollars toward research or services? Now we of course
lean toward services.
Yeah, just a little, but you know, research is important. Research to understand what works. So we believe research that helps a parent or an individual decide what the best treatment or best support for them is, that's great. But we got to put some commitment to services. I mean, it makes economic sense. It's a good investment in society. It's a good social purpose. But there's that fight going on. The other thing is we have a national system that is also kind of interpreted or implemented in each state. So you have 50 different ways plus the District of Columbia. And the best example I always use is if my son, we live in Maryland, and if someone in Maryland, I live 2 blocks from the city line of Washington, D.C. Now, if my son was getting services in Maryland, he goes to college, they said, but if let's say my son was getting services in Maryland, and we waited 5-6 years for those services, and he got them, although you don't wait that long in Maryland, but let's just say you wait. If we wanted to move 2 blocks away into Washington, D.C., he would lose his services and he would have to start all over again. And
that doesn't seem right.
Well, it makes no sense. I get a driver's license, they take my driver's license, but the argument is that if you move to Washington, why should you get services? There's other people on a waiting list. But we all know there's a solution to that. And so how do you make it so that a parent or a family member who wants to move? This morning I got a call from an individual who wanted to move to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for a job.
Okay.
But he had support services and he lives in New Jersey. And I had to say to him, you know, you could do it, but you're going to lose your services. And his services were not that great, but it was to kind of help him with shopping and support. So that's a problem. So how do you get portability of federal funded or partially funded services so you move from state to state, you don't lose it? That's
a very valid question that makes me wonder, is there legislation that's either on the books or in the process of, in keeping with your goal of integration, is there something that is focused on having those services travel with the individual and not be based anymore on where they live geographically, so families can move? And
there's not any legislation introduced, but there's a group of us working with some members of Congress to start talking about that. Representative McKinney who's from West Virginia,
Sure.
is a champion of how do we move these services. There's ways to do that. But the problem is we're not a society where everyone stays living in the same place and grandma lives there. So the other problem is if your family needs support, you know your closest relative may be 1,000 miles away. What happens? We had this case a couple weeks ago. Parents died. Their daughter became this child, this adult individual with autism had serious needs. The person was going to move in with his sister, who lived in another state, and we had to say, you got a problem, because the minute you move in that state, you lose your services.
See, that just seems completely unfair.
It's totally unfair.
It seems that it should be more of a system that's almost like our passports or our licenses.
Exactly.
These are this is individualized to you. We understand that employment is transient and sometimes hard to get. We understand the United States is spread out, and so this follows you wherever you go.
And you get then, I totally agree. Then when you get into this, if we're state A, we should make the decisions. Well, you know, we had an employer that was moving their office, wanting to move their office to another city, and the city was giving them incentives. Well, guess what? The CEO knew that there was people on his staff that he wanted to move who had kids who had services with disabilities, and they were going to lose services. And guess what? They didn't move. So, you know, this is part of America. We're a transient group. We move from places. If you send the kid to a program or a school, they tend to stay there. It's a big issue, but it also addresses the adult service need. That's great. So back to your legislative question, you know, we really have to start moving in that direction. The other thing legislative, which we're beginning to do more on, is looking at where you see a repeated denial of basic rights to a person with autism. So we have certain school systems that we know of that have just done a bad job of helping their kids. Well, there comes a time when you say enough's enough, and you say to the Justice Department, guys, these guys are violating the law.
Sure.
We see other institutions that are not supposed to be discriminating, and whether it's purposeful or not, sometimes you try to work for years with someone, but then you say, this is not acceptable. They're taking federal money, and they're supposed to be following laws, and they're not. But the other side of the coin is you see things like police forces now where they're saying, we don't understand autism, train us. How do we relate to a person with autism? TSA came to us and realized that a lot of times when someone with autism would go through the screening, which is an anxious moment for anyone, and they would be patted down and they didn't want to be touched. Now they understand it. So at the same time as we're saying to schools that have history of discrimination and denial of rights, look at before you get in part justice, we'll help you, we'll educate, but you can't take a kid from kindergarten to 18 and put them in a room and not do anything. That's not acceptable, and we have to then become the advocate for that child and that family. Unfortunately, there's less and less of that, but legislative, where we're telling now the Justice Department, Department of Education, Department of whatever, you have a moral responsibility to manage this. You know, if we see you have to look at these discrimination issues, and the Justice Department's been responsive, and that's good.
My head is buzzing. I have so many questions, both on the education front, as far as, you know, how do you police potential discrimination within the classrooms when you've capped off, let's say, you know, 1% of students who can be segregated out, and if you're trying to talk about the ability to go for that the general diploma, how do you make sure that those kids are really being given the same level of education? How do you know, there are just so many issues to deal with. How do you police that? Who's policing that?
So it's a real wonderful.
And are these all legislative issues that the Autism Society is trying to advance?
And how do you know, there's a whole separate issues. Are the feds supposed to tell states what they do? Sure. And there's that whole
This is all constitutional law.
And again, you know, even though we're one large country, we're so many different regions and cultures and people. What works in one community may not work in another. But it's, you know, at a basic level, no one should ever discriminate or deny a person an opportunity or right just because they have autism.
And
Deny
that's
the person
great-
a right if they don't have an education required for a job. That's okay, but don't deny them an education just because they're autistic, or don't deny them access to a house, an apartment because they have autism. So that's still out there, and
it sounds like that is really what the Autism Society is working toward on a global level on all subjects, to really looking to help people whose lives are impacted by autism to live with dignity and to be treated equally from the time they're born to the time they
they die.
Move on. I hate to say
I'll
yes,
say
I
it.
hate to say it, but on a happier note, because we could get into the legislative issues, I think, do a whole show on just maybe having a senator come in and visit us and talk to us about what is going on in Congress. I'd like to get a hold of one myself.
That's great. Well, there's some very, very good people in Congress and very good staffs that get it.
And we do have some great people working on our behalf, and I've had the pleasure of meeting
that's
some
right.
of
You
them.
were visiting with us in February.
It was very enlightening. But on a happy note, we've got another show coming up next month in light of the July 8th through 11 46th annual Autism Society Conference. And so we thought we would run a contest and have you folks submit your best ideas for future shows. They can be anything in the world. You come up with anything that you think would be fun to watch, would be informative, would be an interesting debate, or fun guests, and you can submit those to us at looks like media@autism-society.org. Again, that's autism-society.org. I will get it right eventually. So we're going to do the cutoff on May 25, and that gives you basically 3 weeks to come up with some great ideas. Scott and his staff will ferret through those ideas, and there will be 3 prizes. The first prize will be 2 registrations at the conference that are each worth $275, as well as a $500 stipend. And the second prize, I think you said, would be 2 registrations. And the third prize will be 1 registration. So whether you're first, second, or third, it sounds like you're getting great entrance into this conference.
And it's not based upon what your idea is. It'll be everyone who submits the thing will have an equal chance to win.
Oh, okay. It sounds like we're going to do a drawing.
My office said only 1 entry per person.
Okay, 1 entry per person. Again,
per email.
Per email. Again, it's at media@autism-society.org. And we look forward to receiving your submissions. Our next show in June will be all about the upcoming conference in Denver. It should be very exciting. I understand Temple Grandin is going to speak.
Temple Grandin is speaking, yes.
And we should have some really exciting speakers, exhibitors, and quite an interesting few days out there. So we look forward to having you join us again and to your submissions. Thanks so much for watching The Future is Bright and for joining myself, Stephanie Schaefer, and Scott Badish. Thank you.
Thank you.